So welcome everyone. I'm so glad that you're here tonight. Before we dive in, I just want to acknowledge something really important. And that is that this specific topic of addiction and cravings and overeating can stir up a lot of feelings. Guilt, shame, frustration, even sadness or fear. If that's you, please know that you're not alone. Millions of women feel the same way. And this session is a safe, judgment-free zone. We're not here to blame or shame. We're here to help you understand and to look at the science behind cravings and why our brains and bodies respond in the way that they do. My goal for tonight is to give you clear information, practical tools, and encouragements that you can start taking back control. You're not broken, and this isn't about willpower. It's about biology, behavior, and self-care. So take a deep breath, settle in, and know that wherever you're starting from today is perfectly okay. You're in the right place, and we're here to support you. So for those who have not met me and don't know me, my name is Jen. I'm an occupational therapist and a metabolic health coach, and I have a special interest in neurological rehabilitation and brain health. I'm a certified nutrition network practitioner, and I have a very big interest in helping people to improve their metabolic health, in preventing disease, and promoting mental health, specifically so that people can stay in the workplace. Over the last year, I've built a community to support others in making lifestyle changes to improve their health, wellness, and productivity. And I empower people to understand how the way that they feel their bodies shapes this. And I also help to equip them with the knowledge and tools that they need to thrive. So over the years, I've seen the effects of sugar cravings and addiction on many of my clients, especially those battling with type 2 diabetes, obesity, and many other metabolic disorders. Making changes to improve their health is very difficult when they're faced with addiction and cravings that are controlling them. I believe that it's time for people to take back their health from the medical system. No one else is interested in your future health but you. And only you can decide which path you're going to follow. This is a little bit more about me. Last year when we graduated as Nutrition Network practitioners was a very exciting day for me. I have a family and 2 young children, Holly and Rowan. They're 10 and 6, and we enjoy going camping on weekends. And I've also recently started doing CrossFit to get stronger and build my bone density and just improve my muscle strength. Okay, so let's get going. Do you feel like sugar is controlling you? Do you have constant cravings, energy dips during the day? Need a sugary pick-me-up or something sweet before bed? Do you eat emotionally? Or do you have a severe need to eat sugar even when you know that you shouldn't? Are you unable to stop after just one? So these are some of the symptoms that you might be feeling when you experience sugar cravings. Now there's an assessment that we do with our clients that helps them to see how much of a problem this is for them in their lives. So Brueton Johnson was one of our lecturers in the Nutrition Network Practitioner training course, and she is a specialist in food addiction and a registered nurse, and she has gone through the process herself. And she adapted this questionnaire to help clients determine if they have a problem with sweets. So since then, she's also developed a tool, an assessment tool called Sugar, which is a comprehensive diagnostic tool for sugar addiction. And this program has helped her to properly diagnose sugar addiction and make the difference between social use, harmful use, and sugar addiction, which has therapeutic implications. So we need to know what the underlying cause is before we can treat it appropriately. The sugar addict has to achieve abstinence to have the best chances for long-term rehabilitation and remission. And Sugar, her tool, is an invaluable clinical tool for improving patient diagnostics and outcomes. So this is not the sugar tool. This is just a questionnaire, but it helps to to differentiate between harmful use and addiction. And in the questionnaire, sweets refers to any sugar or carbohydrates and can include pasta, bread, desserts, cookies, cool drinks, ice cream, pizza, cereal, potatoes, rice, sweeteners, with or without added fat. So we're going to go through it together. And I just want you to make a mental note, or maybe if you've got a pen and paper with you at the moment, you can just mark down your yes answers if any of them apply to you. So the assessment is actually called UNCOPE, which stands for the first letters in all of the different aspects of it. So the first one is unplanned use. So over the past year, have you ever eaten more sweets than you intended? Or have you spent more time eating or using sweets than you intended to? You don't have to share your answer with anyone. You can just in your head or just make a mental note, yes or no. Number 2 is N for neglected. Have you ever neglected some of your usual daily responsibilities due to using sweets or overeating? So actually this tool was adapted from the tool that they use to look for alcohol addiction, which is why they've just replaced the word alcohol with sweets, and that includes all the carbs and sugar. So neglected means that you haven't been able to fulfill your duties. You maybe missed work, or you didn't get to do some of the things around the house because you were obsessed by eating. Third one is cut down. Have you ever felt that you wanted or needed to cut down on eating sweets in the last year? And number 4, objected. Has anyone objected to you overeating sweets? Has your family, a friend, or anyone else ever told you that they objected to your eating habits? Then we're going to go on to number 5, preoccupied. Have you ever found yourself preoccupied with wanting sweets, or found yourself thinking a lot about sweets? So just constant thoughts about what are you going to eat next? Where are you going to get it? Do you have to stop on the way home to get it? And the last one is E, emotional discomfort. Have you ever used sweets or food to relieve emotional discomfort, such as fatigue, irritation, sadness, anger, tiredness, or boredom? So just add up your yes answers if you ticked any of those for yes. And if you got 2 or more yes answers, this would indicate a possible problem and/or addiction. The recommendation is to do a sugar assessment if it is an addiction. But if it's more than 2, it does indicate some form of harmful use. So I want to know from you, what are your sweets? What is your go-to? The food that you crave, what do you think about? And what do you try to get hold of? If you didn't manage to click on the QR code in the beginning, you can just click on it now with your phone. It's anonymous, so we're not going to see your name. It's just going to come up. What is it for you? And sometimes it doesn't always have to be sweet. So that's the interesting thing. Often carbs, even flour, can be addictive, and we crave that feeling that we get from eating it. So some people don't eat sweets or sugar at all, but it's bread or it's pasta. Chocolate is a big one. Cake batter. And I think each person will know for themselves what that thing is. Some people have very specific things that they need or want, and for others it's a bit more general. Carbs, all carbs. Okay. So chocolate wins in that one. We all know why. So what's the difference between addiction and harmful use? So there is a very specific difference between the two, and we need to know the difference. And the treatment is also quite different, depending on if it is a real addiction or if it's just a harmful use. So if we look at addiction, we do see it as part of the substance use disorder model. An addiction is more than just liking or overusing something. It's actually a brain-based condition that's characterized by compulsive use despite harm. In sugar and carb addiction, the brain's reward system, the dopamine pathways, we're going to discuss a lot about that later, behave as it would with any other addictive substances. People may binge or lose control around certain foods repeatedly. So some of the signs of addiction would be complete loss of control. They can't cut down or stop despite repeated attempts to do so. They have a compulsion or a craving, persistent thoughts or urges to consume sugar or carbs. Tolerance, they need more over time to get the same hit or that same level of pleasure. They actually experience a physical withdrawal or even emotional withdrawal symptoms such as headaches, irritability, or fatigue when reducing or stopping the sugar or the carbs. And they continue to use the sugar or carbs despite harm that they know in their body. So they might experience health consequences, weight gain, dental problems, mood instability, problems in their relationships, but they still use the drug. And this results in severe consequences in all 4 areas of life: physical, psychological, spiritual, and emotional. So harmful use is a problematic use, but without necessarily the addictive side. Harmful use means that the patterns of consumption that cause negative consequences, but without the compulsive dependency-related behaviors of addiction. So in the sugar or carb context, this might look like someone habitually overeats desserts on weekends or during stressful times. But if they decide to stop eating puddings or sugar for a week, they can, even though it might be difficult for them. So with harmful use, it's intentional overuse, overeating sweets during stress or social events, binge eating on weekends or when they're out. They may experience guilt or regret afterwards, but they're still able to retain control, and they can moderate or stop with effort. They don't necessarily experience withdrawal or strong cravings when they stop the use of the sugar or carbs. And the negative effects that they experience may be more lifestyle related, such as weight gain, fatigue, or mood dips, rather than these compulsive patterns that influence all the areas of their life: work, relationships, family, and social. So it's important to know the difference between the two. So we are going to go into a little bit of brain science, neuroscience here. So do stop me if it gets too much. Try to make it as simple as possible so that we can understand it. So sugar addiction is seen as a primary illness. According to the Addiction Society of Medicine in America, well, it's actually the American Society of Addiction Medicine, they've redefined the definition for addiction, and as addiction is a treatable chronic medical disease that involves complex interactions among the brain circuits, genetics, the environment, and an individual's life experiences. It is not about the substance, the quantity, or the frequency of use. It's about the brain. So the way that your brain behaves to that substance or to any other substance would be the same. And it's a brain illness. It's really seen as a brain illness with functional changes to the brain circuits that are involved in the reward, stress, and self-control pathways. So this is really important to understand, that addiction is not a lack of willpower. It's really a brain. There's a wiring in your brain that is wired to be overactive. So the brain has a reward system that releases the neurotransmitter dopamine whenever we experience something pleasurable. For example, like eating sugar or carbs. Sugar produces a particularly strong dopamine response, which can overstimulate the reward system and make cravings increasingly intense. And at the same time, the prefrontal cortex, which we're going to speak about a bit later too, but this is the part of the front of the brain that makes our executive decisions and uses logic. This is the area responsible for self-control, decision-making, and planning, can become less effective, particularly when the blood sugar is unstable, sleep is disturbed, or our stress levels are high. This imbalance is like having the accelerator pressed firmly down while the brakes are weakened, which explains why resisting sugar can sometimes feel so difficult. Because the dopamine side is overactive and we're not able to control those with our thinking part of our brain. So understanding this shift helps move the focus away from willpower towards strategies that can help regulate the reward system and strengthen our executive function, making it easier to regain control over cravings. So if we have a look at the picture of the brain here, the red is the reptilian brain, or what we sometimes call the primitive brain or the caveman. And that is the part of the brain that is just there for survival. So it's interested in eating, reproduction, our fight, flight, or freeze response. It's a primitive brain, part of the brain, and it's wired at birth. It does not learn from mistakes. It doesn't have language, and it's survival mode. So when we ask an addict, a sugar addict, why are you eating this? They can't give you an answer because that part of the brain that's driving that behavior doesn't even have language to explain why they're doing it. The other thing is that the more we activate these dopamine receptors through eating sugar and getting that high all the time, and the more dopamine is released, the brain then makes more receptors to accept the extra dopamine neurotransmitter that's in the brain. And so when we don't get that high, we then need more and more of the substance to give us that same feeling because we have more receptors that are looking for the dopamine. So here is just another diagram, and looking at the dopamine and serotonin pathways, they're both neurotransmitters. We know that the dopamine pathway is the one that is responsible for pleasure and reward, euphoria, motor function, compulsion, and perseveration. And if we look at the blue line, it really does feed straight into the hypothalamus and the frontal lobe. So this is the neurotransmitter that drives addiction, disconnection, and feelings of being trapped. Whereas serotonin, on the other hand, is more responsible for our mood, for memory processing, sleep, and cognition. And that is our calming neurotransmitter that helps us to feel happy, content, serene, and is the opposite of addiction. So with that neurotransmitter, we can be in recovery, connection, and freedom. Now, there's an interesting analogy of looking at this in terms of pleasure-pain balance. And there's a fascinating book called Dopamine Nation by Dr. Anna Lemke, who's a psychiatrist and author. She writes about finding balance in the age of indulgence. So imagine that our brains contain a balance, a scale with a fulcrum in the center. When nothing is on the balance, it's perfectly level with the ground. When we experience pleasure, dopamine is released in our reward pathway, and the balance tips to the side of pleasure. The more our balance tips and the faster it tips, the more pleasure we feel. But the important thing here is about the balance. It wants to remain level, in equilibrium. And the body is always looking for homeostasis or equilibrium. It doesn't want to be tipped for very long to one side or the other. So every time the balance tips towards pleasure, powerful self-regulating mechanisms kick into action to bring it level again. And these self-regulating mechanisms do not require conscious thought or an act of will. They just happen like a reflex. So once the balance is level, it keeps going, tipping an equal and opposite amount to the side of pain. We've all experienced craving in the aftermath of pleasure, whether it's reaching for a second chip or another, clicking on the next link for the episode of your favorite series. It's natural to want to recreate those good feelings or try not to let them fade away. So the simple solution is to just keep eating or playing or watching or reading. But there's a big problem with that. With repeated exposure to the same or similar pleasure stimulus, the initial deviation to the side of pleasure gets weaker and shorter, and the after response to the side of pain gets stronger and longer, a process that science call neuroadaptation. So that is with repeated or repetition, we need more and more of the drug of choice to get the same effect. And needing more of a substance to feel pleasure or experiencing less pleasure at a given dose is called tolerance. And so we start to build up a tolerance to the drug, and that's how we develop addiction. So with prolonged heavy drug use, the pleasure-pain balance eventually gets weighted to the side of pain, even though we keep trying to recreate that feeling of pleasure. And our pleasure set point changes as our capacity to experience pleasure goes down and our vulnerability to pain goes up. And so it's a very interesting book to read. And what she says is that the more in our modern day world we seek pleasure, we're actually just activating the pain pathways because we're not able to experience that same pleasure as we always did before. And so one of the techniques that she uses is things like cold plunges, even exercise. So we want to do things that are effort-based and possibly causing pain. If you can think that a cold plunge would be uncomfortable, possibly painful, but not that painful. And so by activating the pain side of that balance, in order to correct itself, the body will then actually release endorphins and oxytocin, which is the pleasure side. So we are constantly pushing on the pleasure side and actually experiencing pain as a result. And maybe if we try to actively look for pain in certain ways, and I mean, I'm saying that, but discomfort in a way, cold plunges, things that wouldn't be natural to do, we can actually stimulate the pleasure side to come up. So again, looking at the brain from a reptilian or primitive brain side, this part of the brain is only interested in three things: ease, comfort, and pleasure. And that's what we mean by our reward system becoming overactive. If we eat sugar often, we want more and more of it to get that same hit. It starts shouting louder and louder for sugar. And this can make normal food seem boring and cravings feel almost impossible to resist. So when the reward system is overactive, it can drown out the prefrontal cortex, our thinking brain, and at the same time, combined with stress, poor sleep, or overeating sugar, it reduces the activity in the prefrontal cortex, which means that our ability to control impulses or think long-term is weaker. Like our brakes aren't working while the accelerator is pushed down. So this reptilian brain is our accelerator, and the prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that allows us to stop and think about our actions before we just dive in. So here it is here, the prefrontal cortex, it's in the front of our brain. Right here, it's our thinking brain, it's where our intelligence comes in. And this helps us to plan, make good choices, and say no when something isn't good for us. When we're well rested, not stressed or dysregulated, this part of the brain works well. But we know in stressful situations, if we are fearful or if we're living in danger, our primitive brain takes over because that is our survival and our fight or flight response brain. So we definitely don't want to be living in fight or flight if we want to overcome cravings and addiction. So the prefrontal cortex is responsible for impulse control, strategic thinking, understanding consequences, planning, decision-making, evaluating risks, judgment, self-discipline, but it can also be easily bored. Okay. Sugar is the gateway drug. So it's often said that sugar is the gateway drug. And what does this mean? It means that it's the first drug that we're exposed to, and it's the drug that leads to many other addictions. So remember, addiction is a primary illness, and it can have many outlets. So sugar can be one of those outlets: alcohol, gambling, sex, Shopping, spending, those are all other outlets that can be an addiction, but the main problem is addiction. Um, it's a primary illness with many outlets, behavior or process addictions. And why is it a gateway drug? Because it's readily available. Our children are exposed to it from a very early age. We have societal misperceptions that it's accepted, even encouraged for people to eat sweets. We give it as gifts. We celebrate with it. And especially in children, their prefrontal cortex is still immature. And if we are starting to build this addictive brain and the wiring for the dopamine reward system, that prefrontal cortex is not going to mature enough to be able to make better decisions around food. We're constantly exposed to sugar and carbs in our lives. And because of this, there's increased sensitivity to cue-induced cravings. So even the thought, smell, or sight of food can trigger those cravings in us. We also get an increased insulin response just to thoughts or memories of eating something. You might see a picture of a milkshake in the menu, and immediately your taste buds and your mouth starts watering. You're thinking about how you're going to feel when you drink that milkshake. Your body has already started to make insulin to prepare itself for the onslaught of the sugar that's going to come in once you do have that milkshake. So just to the thoughts or the memory. And then especially with addiction, we have a euphoric recall and a very strong addiction memory. So we'll never forget what it felt like to have that bite or to indulge in the craving or in the addiction. And that often also drives the craving and the repeated use. So I have shown this slide previously, and I really like to use it because I think it helps people to make sense of what's happening in their body when they eat sugar or carbs, and also just to connect the dots that they might not have realized happen when they eat it. So if we look at the dark black line, that is showing our glucose levels in the blood, and the dotted line is our insulin levels. So when we first eat the sugary meal or the drink or the carb meal, our blood glucose levels rise, and along with that, our insulin level rises. And this, just so that you know, is taken, the graph is of healthy, metabolically healthy young adults, so not people with metabolic syndrome or dysfunction. So it's a normal response is that the insulin level rises as the blood sugar rises, and the job of insulin is to bring the blood sugar level back down to normal. So a few hours later, our insulin and glucose are working well, but what's happening is that the sugar level is come down to below where it started. So it's now getting too low. The body then sees that as a stress response because it very tightly controls the level of blood sugar in our blood at all times. And so when it sees or senses that the blood sugar is dropping too quickly or that it's going too low, you might start to feel hungry, anxious, weak, sweaty, have heart palpitations. And what's actually happening on the inside is that your body has registered a stress response and has sent the hormones adrenaline, cortisol, and glucagon to convert the stored glucose or glycogen back into glucose to be used in the blood and to just raise that blood sugar up so it doesn't go too low. And that is a stress response in your body. And that happens every time you eat a sugary meal. So we might not realize that 3 hours later, when you do start to feel hungry or anxious or craving that next sweet thing, that it's actually because your blood sugar levels are not stable and they're dropping too much. So this also impacts our mood and our mental health. And too much insulin in the body is also going to tell the body to store all this extra energy as fat. And so that's where we gain weight. And insulin actually locks up those fat cells so that we cannot access it again. So it locks it away and we can't get to it. So one of the other things that it does is that it disrupts our hormones. And these are the main hormones involved with digestion and sugar imbalances. So insulin, I just spoke about, is a hormone that's made by our pancreas. And its job is to remove sugar from your blood into your cells for energy or for storage. When we eat sugar or carbs, insulin spikes to bring this blood sugar level down. So the problem with this is that frequent sugar spikes or glucose spikes can lead to insulin resistance, which makes it harder for your body to regulate sugar and increases cravings. Ghrelin is made by the stomach, and it signals that it's time to eat. So it's our hunger hormone. These levels rise before meals and they drop after eating. The problem is that with high sugar diets and sleep deprivation or stress keeps ghrelin levels high, making you feel hungry even when your body doesn't need food. So that constant hunger needing to eat. Leptin resistance. Leptin is also a hormone that's produced by our fat cells, and it tells your brain that you've had enough. So it's the full hormone. It tells you to stop eating, and it helps to regulate your appetites and assists with long-term energy balance. So when we have excess sugar, poor sleep, or inflammation, your brain can become less sensitive to leptin, so we don't ever feel full, even after eating. And the other thing is that eating sugar and carbohydrates are not nutritious. They're not nutrient dense. So a packet of chips is not going to make you feel full. You could carry on eating more and more, and you would still not feel full. And then cortisol is our stress hormone, and it's released by the adrenal glands in response to stress. Cortisol helps our body respond to challenges, but chronic stress keeps cortisol levels elevated. And high cortisol increases cravings for sugar and energy-dense foods. It encourages fat storage, especially around the belly, and it can also disrupt sleep and appetite regulation. So when we have sugar cravings, the sugar spikes our insulin, our blood sugar crashes, ghrelin rises, we feel hungry again, we've got leptin resistance, the brain doesn't register fullness, we have high cortisol, which drives those cravings for sugar and carb-rich comfort foods. So this results in a cycle of cravings, overeating, and energy crashes. If we look at this image here, which is quite a nice one as well, it just shows if we've got addiction at the bottom and all the things that it leads to. So sugar, lack of sleep, refined carbohydrates, sedentary lifestyle, ultra-processed foods, chronic stress, all of that results in insulin resistance. And then at the top, we've got all the metabolic and chronic diseases that we're seeing today. Cancer, high blood pressure, strokes, heart disease, migraines, inflammation, type 2 diabetes, gout, polycystic ovaries, osteoarthritis, dementia. So in order to treat any of the problems at the top, we have to get to the root cause, which is the sugar and carb addiction. Okay, so what have you tried in the past? When those cravings hit, what have you tried in the past to stop eating sweets or to stop the cravings? And I think some of you might have turned to other things that fill the need but aren't sugar or sweet. So smoking, drinking alcohol, exercise, they can all be outlets to try and avoid eating sweets. Stop going down the sweet aisle. And have any of them helped? Or do they just help for a little bit? So we're going to get to it now in terms of the practical strategies, but I think a lot of the time, especially with what I'm seeing here, is that the environment plays such a big role in the habits and in the cravings. So if it's there, we will eat it. And so we have to stop it before it gets into the house or before we put it in the trolley, avoiding the aisle in the shops, taking a different route home so we don't pass McDonald's on the way home and see all the big billboards advertising the burgers and triple-decker pizzas and milkshakes. Okay, thank you for sharing that. So another thing is emotional eating. and how it triggers our cravings. So sugar and carbs signal these dopamine pathways, which are our feel-good neurotransmitter. So because they make us feel good in the moment, and it's kind of like an instant reward, we often, and most people, because we've been doing it from such a young age, we turn to food as our coping strategy when we're feeling overwhelmed or dysregulated. Any negative emotions or discomfort that we feel, we turn to sugar and carbs because it buffers the uncomfortable emotions. We don't have to think about the problem because we can just feel good right now by eating something. And it's important to know the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger. So what does real hunger feel like? Do you even know what real hunger feels like? And are you eating because you're really hungry? Or are you eating because you're trying to satisfy an emotional hunger, an emotional need? And Dr. Rob Cyrus is one of my favorites, low-carb people to watch on YouTube. It's always got lots of interesting information to share. And he says that a snack is always an emotional event. So whether we realize it or not, why are we reaching into that snack drawer, reaching for the sweet treats? Is it boredom? Is it because we feel, are we stressed? Did we have a bad day? And remember that that primitive brain, that lizard brain of ours, can tell us all kinds of stories to make us justify why we're doing this. So we had a really tough day at work today. I've had to put up with so much stuff. Well, I just came out of such a hectic meeting. I deserve this. I'm out partying with my friends, been a long week. I can go big. So there's always a justification. So what we have to try and do is to become aware of our body senses and become more body aware. So our bodies are constantly sending us signals about stress and overload, and we just have to learn how to listen to these signals. And this is called interoceptive awareness, IA. It's our secret weapon for managing mental health, cravings, and sugar addiction. If we can learn to identify the overload signals, the tight feeling in your chest, the tension in your shoulders, the sweaty palms, or the racing thoughts, we can start to take action before reaching crisis points. So here's some questions you can ask yourself. Do you know when your body goes into overload? And if you can say yes to that, that's a good thing that you know. Some people don't know. They can't feel it in their body when they're reaching overload. Where do you feel it in your body? Is it in your chest? Is it in your hands or your shoulders, your neck, in your tummy? And what does it feel like? How does it make you feel emotionally? When does this usually happen? And then the most important thing is, how can we self-regulate when we notice these signs without turning to food, or especially sugary foods? So one of the other things about eating is that just the action of eating triggers our vagus nerve, and that is our calm. It's the opposite of fight or flight. So our vagal system is our calming system in our body, and eating does activate that vagus nerve system as well. The parasympathetic system, the rest and digest. But if we constantly turning to the sugary foods, it's not really going to help in that situation. So what other strategies can we use when we start to notice? Or even if we're not noticing, then what can we do to start becoming more aware of these internal signals that our bodies are telling us? So I want you to have a think about what emotions come up for you when you think about sugar or about not having sugar. So when you don't walk down the food aisle, the sweets aisle, but then you've got to stand in that queue to pay, and all around you, up to your head, is just rows and rows of sweets and chocolates. Or if you don't have it in your house, how does that make you feel? Do you know what you're feeling? Are you aware of those emotions that are driving the cravings? And conflicted that's so true because you've basically got two brains in your head and they're both telling you to do something different. So the lizard brain, your primitive brain is telling you to go ahead and eat it. You're going to feel so much better. And that the conscious part is fighting against it the whole time. And that can really be exhausting. Hmm. Any excuse. And again, that's the primitive brain. It's going to tell you what you need to hear. It can spin the stories. Any excuse. Okay, so let's carry on. We're going to talk about some trigger situations, and it's important to understand for yourself what are your trigger situations. So potential risk situations might be things like being at home alone, doing the grocery shopping, going on work trips or social events, parties, festivities, and holidays. So those are situations that we might find ourselves in that will lead to overeating or indulging in the food that you know that you shouldn't. And again, it's all socially acceptable. So no one's even going to blink an eye if you if you eat an extra mince pie at Christmas or have something on a work trip or put a few extra chocolate bars in your trolley when you're in the shopping mall. And then some warning signs. So this also relates to the emotions that we spoke about earlier. So we need to become aware of what these warning signs are that are going to trigger. So being tired or not sleeping well leads to higher cravings for sugar or carbs the next day due to the ghrelin and leptin dysregulation, and then also just feeling tired and feeling like you need an external energy source to get to. Irritable, low mood, low energy, feeling confused, stress. So stress-induced cravings, that's just stress that makes you reach for something. And that's why it's so important to be able to regulate our nervous systems and to become aware of our emotions. Because if we're not, we're just going to allow them to rule and control our lives by what we're putting into our mouths. So some practical strategies. What can we do to help break free from cravings, sugar cravings, and from overeating and addiction? So the most important one is to stabilize your blood sugar with real food. And I've had many clients that have said to me that they thought they had anxiety, and once they changed their diet, their blood sugar levels were much more stable and they didn't have that anxious feeling every day that they always got. And so that on its own can drive you to eat more, because when you feel anxious, you feel like you need something to help you. So stabilizing your blood sugar with real food, eating protein, fat, and whole foods. This nourishes and heals your cell membranes. It reduces inflammation in the body, it reduces oxidative stress, it heals the microbiome. A lot of research has also been done on microbiome, is that when we eat a lot of sugar, the gut microbes actually want more and they crave the sugar. But if we can stop that, then the microbiome changes and heals, and then it doesn't crave the sugar as much. We can reduce insulin resistance and also protect our brain. And we can start seeing the benefits within 2 to 3 weeks. Breathing, learning to process your emotions, like we just spoke about, asking yourself, can I feel when I'm feeling overwhelmed? Where do I feel it? What does it feel like? What does it look like? And actually sit with the emotion and process it, rather than just trying to bury it deeper and deeper and hiding it away with food. And sometimes that can be really hard, and we need help for that, to help us learn to deal with these emotions, because we can't just bury them and pretend that they're not there. And at the end of the day, these emotions are triggered by thoughts and they have vibrations in our body. So although we might want to get away from them because they feel uncomfortable, they're not anything that can cause harm. But what we do with them can cause harm. So learning breathing or using self-regulation techniques to reduce stress and overload. This can look like taking a sip of water, getting up from your desk or going for a walk outside, rubbing cream on your hands as an intentional break, having a bridge activity. So what I mean by bridge is that you want to find an activity that you can do in the moment. When you feel the craving, you can get up and go and make a cup of coffee or tea, or take a sip of your water. Practicing good sleep hygiene principles. And I've put mouth taping in there. That was an example that was given to us in our course. And you take some tape, medical tape. You can actually buy mouth tape these days, and you cover up your mouth when you go to sleep. And this is a hack to promote nasal breathing. And it's been shown that when we have got better nasal breathing, we oxygenate our bodies better at night. We get into deeper sleep. And it also helps to lower our stress hormones, which improves our appetite regulation and potentially has less craving the next day. So if we feel well rested and we've had a good night's sleep, we're not going to be faced with as strong cravings the next day. I spoke earlier about cold plunges, using these pleasure pain pathways, which increase oxytocin and activate the pain pathways. It's a simple thing. You could even start with just a 30-second cold shower in the mornings after your normal shower, just to get those receptors activated, and then gradually try and make it longer. Gentle exercise like nature walks or swimming. We don't necessarily recommend intense exercise here when you're using it to break free from addiction, but just some gentle exercise is good. And then what's really important is setting up your environment for success. So a lot of people have tried that in the past to get the food out of the house, avoid certain aisles, avoid the routes home. So making decisions ahead of time, having healthy snacks on hand, changing your route or even your routine, and then reducing sensory overload. When we feel dysregulated on a sensory level, it also causes us to not be able to think rationally and affects our executive function and cortical, our frontal lobes. And so we need to make sure that we have reduced sensory overload in our environment where we notice the triggers. So it might be at work that there's a lot of people and it's very noisy and you don't have your own private space, or at home if the TV and radio is always blaring and you're actually sensitive to auditory, that might be something to consider. Okay, and then this is also something else that you can take note of. It's chess. Using effort-based emotion management tools rather than instant gratification. So every time we make an effort to do one of these emotion management activities, we're building up our sense of self-confidence and self-worth. So what is chess? It's an acronym for creative arts, is the C. So making things accessible, if you like, doing creative things like reading, writing, painting, playing a musical instrument, fashion, photography, puzzles, Sudoku games, or Sudoku different games, or gardening. And we want to make this accessible and easy in our house. So don't keep it locked away in the cupboard. It must be somewhere on the table that you can easily go and continue. We don't have to finish the whole activity in one day. The H stands for healthy, empathetic human connection. And this is being present with others, talking it through, and becoming a listener. So maybe phoning a friend, sending a message. Exercise, physical activity or movement, doesn't have to be anything hectic. Look for action snacks that you can take throughout the day. They must be intentional and opportunistic. So that means that taking the stairs instead of the lift, or parking slightly further away and from the office and having to walk in. The first S is for sleep. Creating a bedtime ritual, following sleep hygiene principles, and waking up at the same time every day. Another good hygiene principle for sleep is making sure that you get morning sunlight into your eyes without glasses on soon after you wake up, within the first 30 minutes. And then spirituality and meditation, spending time with your higher power, journaling, thinking of yourself in the context of the spirits, personal development, and having a growth mindset. So can you schedule time in your day to practice one or all of these? Daily effort-based practice negates the use of addictive behavior. And if we can replace addiction with effort-based self-care to restore your emotional capacity, it improves self-esteem, boosts self-confidence, and increases respect for yourself. And every time we take a step to do something that's effort-based, it gives us that little reward that we did this for ourselves today. And so it's not a quick fix, but over time it can lead to a better sense of self-worth and control over cravings. So what are the key takeaways? Is that we need to start with changing our behavior and our actions to start recognizing the thoughts, urges, and feelings, because we can't name why we're doing it in the first place from just thinking or thoughts. So we have to change actions first. We cannot talk or think our way out of the addiction or the craving. And we need to heal the brain through improved nutrition to be able to start making better decisions. And in the case of addiction, we have to abstain from the drug food, as difficult as that may be. And that's really when these emotion management tools come in, so that when we feel that craving, we have something else to do and fill that space. If it's a harmful use case, in some cases, we then are able to moderate. And so you could potentially make certain rules for yourself or have only one bite. But if it is a true addiction, one bite is always going to lead to more and more. So we don't want to keep activating that same dopamine pathway, because the more we activate it, the stronger and the more powerful that it gets. And it really does take hold of our brain and of our decisions and our actions. And so to take power away from that, we have to abstain and allow those pathways to regenerate and to quieten down. In terms of addiction recovery, 10% is food and biochemistry. 40% is about emotional management and relapse prevention. And 60% of recovery is self-help and support groups. And I think that's really important to note, that it's not an easy thing to treat on your own. And that we do need the help and support of others if we want to overcome sugar addiction. So 6 wins that you can try right now are eating a protein-rich breakfast. So making sure that you are nourished in the mornings, and we don't start off the day in craving and hunger and with low blood sugars and then just reaching for whatever snack we can find or what's closest in the vending machine or what we can buy on the way to work or the way home from work. So we need to prioritize a protein-rich breakfast that's going to keep us full and satiated for longer in the day and also help to stabilize our blood sugars. We want to plan our snacks ahead of time. And this is where deciding ahead of time is one of our superpowers as humans, and we are able to do that. So getting rid of things in the house and planning healthy snacks that you have with you when you feel the urge you can eat something else. Identify your top 3 trigger foods or times of the day. So often it is something that repeats itself. So figure that out for yourself. What are your trigger foods? Maybe it's a certain place that you know you overeat, or person. Replace your sweet beverages with sparkling water or lemon. And I also like to recommend Revive electrolytes, because it has a flavor. It's not like just drinking water. It replenishes your electrolytes. It's got sodium, potassium, and magnesium in it. And just sipping your electrolytes in a water bottle during the day that's got a spark can be a bridge for you to help you get through that moment where you're craving something. So it's a break. It gets you up from doing something else, gives you something to do, and then you can bring yourself back to what you were busy with. Keep a craving diary for 1 week, which I've got a PDF of one, which I will send to the webinar participants after this, if you would like to try that. So it just gives you some places to write down what was the trigger, how did it make you feel, what did you go for. That can also help you to understand your cravings better. And then we need to learn to process our emotions using interoceptive awareness and look at our environment to see what's causing us to feel overwhelmed or overloaded and what can we do about that. Maybe there's something that you can change in your environment to help you with that. So if you found tonight's session eye-opening and you're ready to dig deeper, I would love for you to join my 6-week metabolic reset group coaching program. And this is where we work step by step together to break free from sugar, restore your energy, and build habits that last. We start on October the 14th. It's a Tuesday evening. It's going to be on Zoom, and all of the sessions will be recorded. Places are limited in the group so that you get plenty of support in a small group community, and lots of time with me and with the other group participants to really discuss and get to the bottom of these issues. And this can be your opportunity to take what you've learned tonight and turn it into real transformation. Before we wrap up today, I also want to make sure that you don't leave feeling like you have to figure this all out on your own. So if you're looking for encouragement, resources, and a safe space to stay motivated, I'd love to invite you to join my Low Carb for Life community. It's completely free. It's a WhatsApp community, and you'll get access to ongoing tips, weekly calls, and support from other women who are on the same journey. If you're ready for something that's more personalized, maybe you're struggling with stubborn weight, cravings, or health challenges, and you aren't able to make the changes yourself to improve them, I also offer individual metabolic health coaching. And this is where we can really dig deeper on a more individual basis into your specific needs and put together a plan that actually works for you. So I'll share the links in the chat and in the follow-up email after this, so that you can choose what feels like the next best step for you right now. If you want to join the group, you can also just use this QR code. It'll take you to the sign-in for the group. And I also, I'm going to put all of these in the chat. That's my Instagram account, the Low Carb Occupational Therapist. And yeah, we've got a little bit of time. I see it is 8. So if you're willing to stay on and ask any questions, there are no stupid questions, and we can all learn from each other. So if you want to have a little bit of a chat and you're free to stay on for a few minutes, you're welcome to ask some chats. Post your chat in the group, or you can unmute and just ask me. I really hope that this session has been informative for you and maybe helped you to see things in a slightly different way. Yeah, I am here if you have any questions or any comments. Okay, let me just open the chat. Okay, so yeah, Joanne says abstinence makes you want it more. That's so true, Joe. And that's why we have to have those strategies in place to help us deal with that in the moment. So initially, yes, the first 2 to 3 weeks are going to be really difficult to abstain from the drug or the food, the carb, the sugar. But we have to have those emotion management strategies in place. And as we stop feeding that primitive brain and those dopamine pathways, they will quieten down. But in the beginning, I know it is very difficult. Megan said, as women specifically, what link is there between our cravings and menstrual cycles? How do we overcome this when our hormones go a bit crazy? Megan, so many of us do have that problem, and I think we blame it on our menstrual cycles. And there's definitely a tendency to eat more and crave sugary sweets when it's that time of the month, or maybe even just before the premenstrual cycle. So I would have a look at all your hormones because I do believe that once we're more regulated in our hormones, we can feel more stable during that time. So I see that cravings during the menstrual period for women is definitely linked to unstable hormone profile that happens um, when our blood sugars are not stable. So have a look at that and see if it doesn't help you. But I know it is for women, it can be difficult. But if we can stabilize our blood sugars, then we have got better control over our cravings and that. And I mean, just to share some of the clients that I've been working with, they initially find it very difficult to change the way that they're eating. There's a lot of food noise, a lot of cravings, a lot of thoughts about food all the time, and it does go away. Once we can get them eating a more healthy diet, that food noise and the cravings definitely goes away. So we don't have to see it as something that's we stuck with forever because we're women and it's that time of the month. So Marjorie said, thanks, Jen. I've gained a lot from the one-on-one coaching sessions that she started with me. She used to love cookies and chocolates, and the cravings have gone since she started eating real food from the lists, and losing weight and also experiencing less inflammation in her shoulders. Thank you, Marjorie. Yeah, you've done really, really well. And I know it feels so difficult in the beginning. And when you get there, there's definitely a freedom that comes with not having to think about food and being so controlled by these cravings all the time. Thanks, Mandy. Excellent presentation. Definitely going to help me get back on track from tomorrow. Anyone else? Any other questions? Comments? What are your thoughts? Did it make sense? What did the neuroscience help you to understand better? Does it help you to realize that it's not you that's broken, that there's definitely something that's going on in your brain that's wiring differently? Thanks, Joe. Joe says she feels really empowered. She feels less like a victim to the roller coaster. And I think we can all agree with that. It can sometimes feel like a roller coaster that we're on and we just can't get off it. But there is hope and there is help for people that are struggling. So if you are going to stay on, I'm just going to quickly open my Word document and I'm going to post in some of the links if you didn't manage to get them earlier in the presentation. So the first one will be for the WhatsApp group link, which you're welcome to join. We do monthly challenges and it's just a nice place to support each other. We also do fasting once a week together. Here's the Instagram link. And if you are interested in our group coaching program that's coming up soon in October, I highly recommend that you just look into it. And let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to post the link to it there that you can click on and just read a little bit more about what we are going to cover in the group. I'm only going to take 15 people on the group coaching program, so it's going to be really small and intimate. We're going to get to know each other well and just, I think, have that safe space to share the things that we're going through and learn in a supportive community. So a lot of what I do is really just educating clients about how the hormones and the blood sugar regulation works in your body. And I think that on its own helps you to make better decisions when you can see what's happening in your body by the foods that we eat. Okay, so if there aren't any other questions, I hope that you, thanks, Joe. Yeah, there are things that we can do. And because the habit is there to just reach for the food and the sugar, that's the automatic. And so it does take a lot of effort in the beginning to create a new habit and to try something that's more emotion based or active and behavior and action that we can do instead. But the more we can practice that new pathway, the stronger that will become. And we need to nurture and nourish that side and not repeat the same pathways in our brain that we've done. Megan, you're welcome to unmute.
Hi, Jane. I hope that you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Okay. So I am kind of attending this out of from a personal point of view, but also I'm an OT working with neuro and physical patients.
Okay, cool.
And so learning a little bit from a dietitian 2 weeks ago about the gut-brain connection and the fact that our gut is responsible for producing neurotransmitters. It was
Mhm.
quite interesting and linked up quite nicely with your presentation. So thank you for the insight into the neuroanatomy and how all of it connects, because I don't think it's something that we are taught in basic biology or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to just ask, so yeah, I really like the kind of 6 things that we could do now. I wonder if you have any kind of don'ts, I want to say, like kind of warnings of things that we might want to try that could actually be a little bit more harmful than what we realize.
Do you mean in terms of actions or
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so trying to cut out those sweets, including carbs and things like that. Yeah.
mm. So I think food is really tricky, and especially when there is an addiction or even a harmful use side. So even when we try and encourage more healthier, nutrient-dense foods, those can also be addictive in a way. So a person, might think I can go and eat cashew nuts, but then they're going to eat an entire tub of cashew nuts or an entire tub of blueberries. So we want to try and steer away from food-based actions. And rather do self-regulation techniques. So I don't know if you know about Anna Marie's work with sensory intelligence. I think that can also really tie in so well with this because it helps you to get an understanding of your own sensory thresholds, where you are needing more stimulation, where you're needing less stimulation. And it gives really nice action-orientated self-regulation strategies that can be used. So whether it's movement or auditory, visual, those are kind of the self-regulation strategies that I'm kind of talking about and thinking of. In terms of don'ts, I mean, yeah, the obvious one is don't have the food around or you want to try and clear out your house that you don't have those foods available for when you have the craving because it's so easy then to just go into it. Um, but yeah, there's a huge link between the gut and the brain, and the gut does produce, I think, 80% of the neurotransmitters. And so if we can heal the guts, we can also help to balance those out better. But I'm glad there's another OT on board that's also interested in this, so that's really cool. Thanks, Megan. I hope that answered your question. Let me just see here. Not even taught in med school. Thanks. Nikki, the food for thought, yes. There will be a recording available. So once the email goes out afterwards, we will get a link to the recording, which will be uploaded onto YouTube. And you're welcome to watch it again then if you joined late or if you'd like to share it with anyone else that would be interested. Um, yes, it is recorded and I'm happy to share it with all of you. And also I'm going to send out the Craving Diary handouts, which is quite a nice tool just to use to help you make sense of the things that you're going through and the emotions. So Marjorie, as you hear, And you opened up about how you were craving cookies and chocolate before. I wonder if you could maybe just tell us about, and you're welcome to put it in the chat, like how was it for you when you had to cut them out? Did you experience any of these emotions initially when you had to, or when you decided to cut them out of your diet?
Hi, Jed. I'm just going to unmute. It's going to be
No
easier than
problem. Thanks,
typing for me.
Marjorie. Thank you for your comment earlier.
Yeah, uh, it was difficult in the beginning, but I guess I was so desperate to get help that I actually followed what you taught, um, like not eating later than 6, that fasting period between supper and breakfast, and not eating earlier than 8.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I dived right into even though I know initially you said I can eat breakfast, lunch, supper, but I went straight for the 10 o'clock breakfast and eat
Mm-hmm.
enough of the real food.
And that
I
helped you to
think,
feel full, and then you didn't have as many
yes,
cravings
I
during the
think
day
that was the
when you were.
magic for me,
Mm,
being able to eat enough and then just carry it on with other stuff during the day. I do have a busy schedule, so that helps me a lot not to think about food
yeah.
all the time. Um, so it was a bit difficult in the beginning, but I must say the cravings went quicker than what I thought. I thought I was
Mm,
going to struggle for a long time, but I actually didn't struggle as much as I expected.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Now I
Marjorie.
can go into a shop and look at the chocolates, and I think the fact that now I can the fact that I'm monitoring my glucose levels, my blood
Mm,
sugar levels, and just seeing what food does to the glucose levels, even what we term as healthy, like
yeah.
some of the food. Remember the time that I had the Nalgene in my
Yes.
blood
Mm,
sugar just shot higher than what we had planned. So I think
that,
now that I understand what it does to my body, that
yeah.
helps me to stay away from it as well. I've got more insight into.
Mm. And also, you're able to your thoughts are clearer, so you can make better decisions when it comes to shopping and having to walk past that aisle, but then not having that urge to put those things in your trolley or to buy them.
Yeah.
Mm. Thanks, Marjorie. I appreciate that.
The last thing that I wanted to say was the
Mm.
planning ahead of time too. Like I travel a lot with my work,
Mm-hmm.
but the tip that you gave me to pack the lunch box the night before, maybe from the supper that I have, or else I would just do the boiled eggs in the morning.
Yeah, so that you're planning
You know,
ahead and preparing for what
planning
you're
ahead.
going to
So I
go
always
through.
have the right food with me so that even if I get hungry, because usually what used to happen, I used to have the habit of stopping by at a quick stop shop or something. And when I'm very hungry, I would just grab whatever I find, whether it's a muffin or
Mm,
because when you're very hungry, you also can't think straight. You just want food.
yeah.
But now that I plan ahead and have my lunchbox with me, I've saved time and money, and I've also saved my health.
Mm. Yeah, and I think not being prepared makes us much more vulnerable to just spur of the moment decisions. And so if we see a vending machine, I mean, what do they sell in a vending machine? Chips, chocolates, and sugary drinks. So that's your options if you don't have anything else. So being
Yeah.
able to plan ahead, pack something that you know you can keep in your bag or have with you when you get hungry, then you don't have to rely on that to get you through when your blood sugar drops and you're really feeling anxious.
And sometimes it happens that I didn't pack the lunchbox, but now that I know what to buy
Hmm.
or what to choose, it it makes it easier.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
also when you're starting out, it's not about cutting out meals and so we want you to eat three main meals a day. that are healthy and nutritious, and then just cut out the snacking in between. And so it's really about, first of all, nourishing your body with real food, so that you don't get hungry and the cravings in between the meals. So that would be step number one. It's not even about really skipping meals or even fasting for someone that's going through addiction and those very strong cravings. But thank you for sharing your insights, Marjorie. That was so helpful.
Thanks, Jen.
Okay, so it's 20 past. I think that's about it. If there's no other questions, we'll end the webinar there. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks, Megan. And I hope to catch up with you, because I think this is such a powerful tool as an OT, just to not even just the sugar addiction, but just health in general, and speaking about lifestyle and nutrition and what our clients are eating and the symptoms that they're seeing. There's huge correlations there. And just helping them to get well again will make a big difference to practitioners. So thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to seeing you in the next webinar.